Was Dr. Fauci held accountable, or were the hearings nothing more than political theater? This Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, Politically Conscious, episode 79, welcomes conservative strategist Leo Smith as we tackle the Fauci hearings and ask why President Trump continues warning that America's elections are in jeopardy. Is he exposing a real threat or fueling dangerous distrust? Live on youtube.com/mental dialogue. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. Welcome to episode 79 as we keep trying to pop this thing out without our brother Emil Bryant, but we're keeping it going. I got my brother Leo Smith in here as we tackle political fodder from around the internet and try to give it to you straight, no chaser. So thank you, Leo, for being with us for episode 79. If you will, give them a quick background, and I want to get into today's topic, Fauci under fire. And, you know, are we still going to have free elections here in the midterms in 2028? That seems to be a question. So if you will, tell them who you are, and we'll play our first clip and give it to people straight, no chaser. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us.
Leo Smith, former Republican National Committee strategist, former Georgia GOP exec, and founder and principal at Engage Futures Group, LLC, which is a government relations, business development, and engagement company here in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right, good stuff. So with that said, let's get started. We're going to start off a little with the Daily Show, so try to get a little humor to kind of kick off this very serious topic, if you will. We won't play all of the clip, but we'll play some of it just to get a gist of what's going on here recently with Fauci having these hearings.
What is it that Dr. Fauci did that is so heinous that you are still trying to get him 6 years afterwards?
Well, he did fund gain-of-function research at a sloppy lab where a virus escaped and left 1 million Americans dead.
Complicit in the deaths of millions of people.
The guy killed or had something to do with killing 9 million people.
Okay, wow, that's right. Okay, he engineered the virus that killed millions and millions of people because it was so deadly. A threat to everyone.
The COVID virus was simply not a threat to most people. My spidey senses about him, about the entire scamdemic, were accurate.
A lot of us that COVID was a flu.
To tell kids they couldn't go to school for years for no reason.
Dr. Fauci lied about his own personal views.
Shutting down the country for a virus he knew wasn't that deadly.
Oh, yeah. See? It's deadly. And it didn't matter. And millions died, but it was fine. And God, my head f***ing hurts, okay? My ears are bleeding. And are those symptoms of the deadly virus? That doesn't matter. I just don't understand. Can someone try again to tell us what was in these diary entries?
If you read the stories in the so-called mainstream press about the Fauci diaries, you will see an exact parallel to the Biden.
I'm sorry. I can't hear you over the pipe. What's going on here? Are you guys trying to solve COVID or a murder on the Orient Express? But enough about Dr. Fauci. Shall we retire to the hot tub, my dear boys? Chop chop. Listen, guys, can we dial this back a bit? I'm not saying Anthony Fauci made no mistakes, but it's not like the man is Hitler.
Fauci's guilty of mass murder and crimes against humanity on a scale of a Hitler and a Joseph Mengele.
Okay. I stand corrected. Fun fact, Hitler also committed all his crimes to meet Barbra Streisand. Fun fact. By the way, if you think America's response to COVID was really that horrible, is there someone other than Fauci you might put some blame on? Maybe somebody Fauci worked for. Could even be somebody you may have met 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5 times. Maybe a little turn around the room might jog your memory, no? Donald f***ing Trump! He.
So, shouldn't be surprised that the Daily Show, who leans highly left, right? putting their spin on it. But again, as we always like to talk about, let's weed through the propaganda, even through the jokes. Again, starting off with a little comedy, because at the end of the day, this Fauci situation, some people are taking it very serious. We asked the question in the promotion: is this political theater? So we'll get into the seriousness of it in a minute here. But I wanted to highlight some of the propaganda I saw and see if you pulled anything out as well, Leo. And so when I look through that, again, Daily Show, we know leans left. When they highlighted in the very beginning, oh, this is a very dangerous virus. And then you hear in a sense, they were showing the Republican, the conservative commentary on the other hand saying, oh, this is not even that serious. This virus is not this serious. And so the little flip and the little trick the Daily Show pulled, just to pull out the propaganda, they were moving the clips between one talking about the vaccine versus the virus. But the way they transpose the video, it looks like they're consistently talking about the vaccine being dangerous versus the virus. So that little flip makes it look like, what are they talking about? On one hand, he killed a lot of people. Over here, this virus is not that serious. And you're on mute, brother. Yeah, go ahead.
There's a difference between politically conscious, this show, and a comedian, that show, with all those clips, because his job was to pull propagandists who he can make fun of, right? Your job is to have meaningful, truth-based, fact-based, substantial, intellectual conversation, whole different genre of content provision, right? And that's why you do what you do. So you point out that here, as you said so clearly, he found propaganda. The fact is that was good levity in introducing the subject that has been brought to fore again because of the hearings on Fauci. But we don't have to really deal with propaganda there, because Fauci, as I always said to you, was also like a moth to the flame of politics in a way that represents what people have heard me say on this show: politics is Hollywood for ugly people. Okay? And what we do know that's factual, that is not propaganda, is what Fauci himself said. That, oh, I love all this attention in his diary that's now public, right? So Fauci is not denying any of that. That diary, that's fact. He wrote that stuff. He loved the stardom of it. And in fact, it may have colored his own approach to how he dealt with things, that he was so malignantly narcissist about getting this attention and having this power and being this world name, that it is a fair critique. But I don't know how you weed that out in politics. So Republicans are these propagandists that he pulled on. Those aren't conservatives, by the way. Those are propagandists. There's a difference between a conservative who has a value system and a propagandist who entertains. That's what a propagandist does. They entertain for likes and clicks, and with the goal of moving someone to a position, whether or not that position is true, good, or beautiful. Doesn't matter. Their job is to move them to that position, right? So all I'm saying is that I'm so happy for your show, Montoya, because you like to get down to facts. And it is irrefutable that Fauci made decisions for popularity rather than fact and science. Now, we can talk about that.
I do not think that is unrefutable at all, but I didn't mind calling out the Daily Show for their propaganda. Again, it's not even us calling out the Daily Show. I'm just actually showing for people, if they are new to politically conscious, what we actually do. We're going to call it straight, no chaser, no matter what. And so because again, we don't even have an issue with the Daily Show's job is comedy over everything. So we don't even have an issue with what they did. But at the same time, if you are not able to see through the actual propaganda, you would think they juxtapose those videos.
This is why, in that scenario and what you just shared there, this is why you and I agree on something, that people need to understand their local power, You know, I served on the state task force for COVID. No joking matter, serious matter. Someone watching and listening to you now, or as they stream later, has had someone in their family die because of COVID. There is no doubt. Right. It is a serious matter with me, a conservative who believes in the liberty of being able to make my own choices about my health, my wealth, etc., who believes in I'm intelligent enough to make my own decisions. I don't need some big paternalistic government telling me what to do and what not to do. But I have to also understand that I'm equipped with certain access to power and knowledge. And I mean, we got CDC right here in Georgia. I mean, so I can call up Beverly Rice at Morehouse. I got her name and the phone number. I can call up the director of the CDC. Most Americans can't do that. And so I was able to make decisions for me. Now, I was exposed daily to death and dying related to COVID. That was real. No Republican's going to tell me that people weren't dropping dead like flies. They were. Right. But at the same time, I was on school boards where we, because of our degree of independence, were able to make better decisions for our children based on what we saw as science. That was not in lockstep with Fauci and what he was putting out there. We rebuked a lot of the stuff that he was doing. And the result is our kids are doing better because of that. Fauci and his leadership did do some things. But see, I don't really blame him so much, even as a conservative. I would blame Governor Kemp or my governor, wherever state you're in, because the governors did have some ability to do things differently in their own states. So I was appointed by the governor. I had a community health engagement task subcommittee that I chaired, right? And I had scientists on my subcommittee giving me an understanding of what Fauci was saying. And that's how Georgia approached it. And we were one of the better states to handle the situation.
All right, respect the thoughts. All right, so here's what I want to do. I want to set the stage on a slightly different topic because of where I'm about to go in reference to this actual hearings that happened to Fauci. Again, we already kind of dissected the Daily Show. So here's a thought that's somewhat unrelated, but it's going to all make sense at the end of the show, which is if you think about why we started Politically Conscious, Leo, it was the idea of raising the conscious level of people understanding, one, how their individual vote matters. That's one of the reasons that we do this, and to help people understand what's actual factual versus the noise that you get via the media, who typically has an agenda one way or the other, or the people that we talk to in politics has an agenda one way or the other. And so we just hope to create a show where people can think about politics in a way to use it for themselves, as you said early, locally. So with that said, here's the state of where we're at in America, and then we're going to go deep into the Fauci stuff. And this is just something, again, I'm just simplifying this, and if I'm unfair, you can say this to me. But at the same time, we're at the state right now where we figured this show is needed to raise people's consciousness, right? So we're at a state right now where someone who's won the presidency twice now, won one, lost one, won one, President Trump. And he is the biggest advocate for us having unsafe elections. I'm only pointing it out because we're at a stage now where culturally and society-wise, we, in my opinion, are unable to decipher the truth in a way like never before. There's no evidence of what President Trump is pushing on a national level. Have there been some county issues? We got issues right here that we can actually account for in Fulton County. That is a real problem, not a problem that could be escalated on the level that's being proposed by this president who's won twice. I would offer that's the silliness of where we've gotten to, that we cannot decipher truth from reality as a society any longer, which I think plays a role in how political theater can take place, as I would call what happened to Fauci political theater. I'm just using that as a preference. We'll come back full circle on it, but I'll get your thoughts before I play the next cut.
I mean, bottom line is that, and we're going to move on and talk about elections and that sort of thing. But Fauci wasn't fully engaged in political theater, and you live by the sword, you die by the sword. If you are attracted to the pomp and circumstance of political theater, as he admitted in his diary, if anybody's not read those diary things, Google it, look up what Fauci said. And anybody listening to this, I don't care how liberal or conservative you are, you're going to agree that Fauci was a little bit into the whole attention in the theater. So if you live by the theater, you die by the theater.
So I would say, in my research of the diary, I think your conclusions are that he talked about how uncomfortable he was with that light.
Well, what are you ignoring all the stuff where he says, "Oh, it's so wonderful. I think I might be the most well-known person in the whole world, and I have as much power as the president." You didn't hear all that?
Okay, so here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I'm just
All these stars are like wanting to know me, and I get to go to places where I see all these important people.
Here it is. Here it is. I'm just saying, let's not leave out. I'll give the whole context. So I'm just saying, let's not leave out how uncomfortable he was before getting to that point. I always want both the sides. That's how, I always want full context. So I'm not saying just what I'm saying. What you're saying is correct, but you can't leave out how initially the limelight made him very uncomfortable.
It's a huge character issue, Montoya.
But it doesn't become huge when it comes to the science.
Several actors and actresses when I was on the state committee for task force. I didn't tell anybody that stuff. I didn't make a big deal about it because I had a character that says I'm worth what I offer to people.
You're leaning into the celebrity. I'm just talking about that he was uncomfortable and then he became to enjoy it, as you saw. But are you skipping over his position in the diary was consistent throughout?
No. But it can't be consistent if you said he started out with a grave reasoned approach to the whole thing.
I'm talking about we're leaning in on the celebrity stuff. He was very consistent in his position in the science inside of the diary. So we're gonna lean into, was he happy about stars or was he uncomfortable about it? But there's nowhere in the diary where he was inconsistent except for one.
I see your point. You might be saying, but Leo, one doesn't have anything to do with the other, because if he said that blah 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 was happening and that was all scientifically factual, the fact that he was also enjoying the celebrity of all doesn't necessarily mean that cancels out all the fact, right?
Especially when
what I say to you, that it makes you have to go and reevaluate the decisions that he made,
right?
And his inability to say I was wrong, because if he had said it was wrong, he might become.
What do you think he was wrong about? Because
well, that's a whole nother thing. So I think he was wrong about the recommended solutions. I think he was too quick to conclude on how you catch it. Okay. So I think he was wrong about whether or not there were pockets of resilience that could be built by local communities, that he did not have to be didactic and prescriptive at the local level. He should have allowed.
There's nothing in the diary that he was inconsistent about. So I'm just saying you disagreeing with him has nothing. There's nothing. Here's the one weak spot in his diary that I'll actually, because I'm going to call it like it is. So his weakest spot is when the first time, and I could be wrong about the actual timeline, but it wasn't too long after the diary entry in which he goes out publicly and says the top scientists and his colleagues, which was like a panel of 12, his closest 12. He basically comes out publicly and offers that that they have concluded that it's more likely natural selection versus being manufactured, right? There's a diary entry where he says only him and one other doctor felt natural. The 10 of his colleagues felt like it was possibly manufactured. So it wasn't too long after that diary entry that he goes out publicly and highlights that they concluded, his closest colleagues concluded, that it was more than likely natural. So at that time, he's actually saying that, while most of his colleagues are saying, I think it's manufactured. So that is the only science. I'm talking about the only thing as far as science goes that's in the diary that can even be questioned. Here's the reality. Right now, we still don't know the natural origin because of how science works.
We don't know.
Now, the evidence leans towards natural, but I'm just saying, so even if that had been 6-6 or 7-5, I'm not a fan of the head of I'll call him the health czar just to keep it simple on the show. I'm not a fan of the health czar saying, hey, me and my colleagues mostly feel this way, when the truth is that ain't what they mostly felt at that time with less information.
So Montoya, okay. Did he write about whether or not he thought it was okay to have his hands involved in funding research on manipulating viruses?
He absolutely did that, but that was prior to that time. He's never denied that. He's been asked that question, and he's been asked that question before. But let's get into the clips and go into the political, because there's a lot of political theater to this, and we need to own that if we're going to call it like it is. But I'm going to play this. I was actually on this show the other night, so I'm going to share the screen. And for everybody watching, sometimes YouTube's gonna sneak you with a commercial. So if it starts with a commercial, y'all just bear with me. It'll be like 30 seconds, and then y'all will get to the clip. Hopefully it won't, but most time when you share the screen, you're gonna get that commercial. So I'm just giving people a heads up. All right, let's share this commercial. Oh no, okay. There you go.
So y'all can kind of get it.
That wasn't really the point of the hearing. Suggests the pandemic emerged from the live animal trade at the Huanan seafood market. And we can certainly talk about that, but that wasn't really the point of the hearing. The point of the hearing was for Rand Paul to go ahead and continue the fiction that it was in fact a lab leak, and that Tony Fauci funded the lab in China that made this through a sub-award on an R01 NIH grant, which is the type of grant that NIH issues to people in the US and in foreign countries, or at least used to. They don't anymore to foreign countries. And not very many in the US either these days. But in any case, Fauci was the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease at NIH. And these sub-awards have been issued, and it was for bat coronavirus research. And Rand Paul is incorrectly claiming that Fauci knew that this work would lead to the pandemic, which it is, as Fauci put it, molecularly impossible to do, which it claiming that Fauci knew that this work would lead to the pandemic, which it is, as Fauci put it, molecularly impossible to do.
If you're a high-performing CEO or executive, here's my offer. I'll get you ripped, healthy, and into the best shape of your life this year.
Man, let's talk about that. That's an important part to stop right there. Molecularly impossible to do. So I don't know how y'all pseudos then cooked it up to do. All right, Sean, you want to add something to that?
I mean, you heard what they said in the earlier onset. I told you get real spicy in the first 3 minutes of the video. Methodology, the importance of how to approach science, the delivery of research, and how evidence is compiled to be able to answer some of these things, and why we know what we know now. Remember, we are 6 years removed from our earliest onset of information. Really a little bit above 6 years, but we know more now because of technology and our ability to be able to communicate. So they can get to what they need to get to really quickly. The United States of America, I repeat, the United States of America is the only place on this planet that is having this discussion.
Because it got Rand Paul. Go ahead, Preem.
Man, that last line Brother Sean said is real. The United States is the only place having this debate. Now, what I want to add on is why. Why is the entire civilized world in unison, but we somehow different? Ask yourself that. It's not because we sharper than everybody else. It's because our scientific community has been hijacked by politicians. One of the first things that Donald Trump did when he got in office was defund research and fire scientists to the point where the scientists don't want to even stay in the United States no more because they are scared of the climate and what's going to happen to them just for telling the truth about their work. We are losing our best and brightest to other countries right now as we speak. The United States is at the dawn of a dark age, and we don't even realize it because we are getting rid of intelligent people that know what they're doing, and we're letting people like RFK take over.
Okay, politically motivated. This was a political maneuver. All right, and that's...
All right, hopefully I stopped sharing. Did I stop sharing?
You did.
All right, cool. So, again, I'm relating what the brother said at the end, that where we're at as a country right now when it comes to fact over fiction, and there is a reality where scientists are feeling like that in the country right now. such a reality that I saw one of the I listened to a show about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. Not even before this Fauci stuff came up, where I just happened to hear one of the scientists saying that when they go to the Capitol now, that their CDC panel used to be all the top epidemiologists in the world, and now it's the panel that RFK promised during his hearing that he would not fires them, and now we have an operational manager on the panel now.
Look, I mean, that kind of stuff happens. People want
It
to.
doesn't happen. It hasn't happened to before now. It's always been. It's always.
What do you mean it hasn't happened before now? I mean, I've taken. Look, wait, hold on, Montoya.
Yeah.
I've been placed in roles where someone rightly could have said, "Why is Leo Smith the person?"
I'm talking about the CDC panel, though. Let's just.
I'm saying the CDC. Hold on. Let me finish. Let me bring it home to that, Montoya.
When has that been
Montoya, let me bring it home to that. I chaired the Community Health Engagement Subcommittee for the State Task Force on COVID. I'm not a medical doctor. So I think one could even say that Leo. See, I think one can say that politically, that the Trump thing of clearing out all the experts, that Brian Kemp made the same kind of decision when he took a Leo Smith, no medical degree, no virology degree, no epidemiology study, no bona fides at all. He made me chair. I think he's rightly. I think that's a right criticism. It happens. It's not just Trump. People.
Tell me at the CDC when it's happened. Tell me when it's happened at the CDC level.
Well, I just told you. I mean, I was
at the CDC level.
Hey, wait a minute. Wait. Montoya, I had more power and authority. Hey, Montoya, hold on. No, I was bossing the CDC. They had to report to me. I was the boss.
Okay, so hold on. So the CDC panel itself, which is typically, and that's what, again, this is what the doctors themselves said. We've never had this conversation with not just doctors. You still reporting to the head secretary or person may not be a doctor. So I'm talking about on the actual panel that look at the people that look at the science, who make the decisions.
So here's what I'm not explaining, and that might be something that's a shift in what you need to know. The environment was such that nobody trusted the scientists. So what they did was, hear me out. It's probably agreeing with what's being said, right?
That is political. That's very political. That we're at the point where we no longer, as
political power,
trust the experts.
Thank you. So let me finish. I want to make sure everybody's clear on this. It got to the point where nobody trusted the political power, meaning the likes of governors and presidents, one president, multiple governors. In Republican states, scientists were not trusted, such that instead of appointing a person who worked at the CDC to be the chair of my committee, they appointed me. Then I was smart enough to ding people from the CDC and put them on my committee, right? I put the director of the medical school of Morehouse on my committee. I put the director of economics at Emory on my committee, right? Because I wanted the best, the brightest, blah, 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 all informing what I was doing. Because the governor trusted me, but not the scientists. And they wanted me to develop, okay, Leo, I trust your reason, your ability to remove propaganda and give me facts and filter out the crap that these people have gotten into groupthink. Because scientists, just like anybody else, can get into groupthink. And that was a real concern. That was a real concern. You don't agree. I'm just telling you that's the position. And I do agree that scientists can also get into groupthink.
So what happens is when you understand scientific methodology, and you should know this as someone who teaches education.
Oh, I totally understand scientific
methodology. The science precedes the scientist.
My undergraduate degree is in science.
So here it is.
I understand.
You should know. You should know the science precedes the scientist.
Nah, there's no such thing as an infallible methodology. No such thing. If you believe such, then you're not really a scientist.
Do you think that's what I just said? I did not just say that.
Well, I'm just making sure that's clear.
Okay, well, I do want to hear this. Here it is. Science can only lean to the evidence. Okay, it's the exact reason. Here it is. It's the exact reason why science doesn't say it cannot be done. It only leans to the evidence. So I'm not offering science in any other way than what science actually is.
But somebody did offer science, though. Hold on. Let us deal with what was said.
I'm gonna finish this because you assume that I meant infallible. I want to be clear at what I am offering so that you don't assume that I mean infallible methodology, because I'm not there doing that. When you understand, like the brother said in the clip, when you actually understand the methodology, then I am not talking about science being infallible. I am talking about evidence precedes the scientist. So what I mean by, here it is, I'm not acting like scientists themselves can never get into groupthink. But if they're getting into groupthink, you should have the evidence to go up against that groupthink, because the evidence precedes the scientist. That's the scientific methodology being used correctly. So we're in a stage now where we allow politics to precede the science, and we have, as those two virologists, the guy that was on that clip, if you paid attention to him, he's the first scientist to do cloning in the 1980s. Though that literally is two virologists at a virologist conference, and they're literally saying what the actual Fauci case was. Did you hear what they said it actually was? Because that's what I want to talk about more so than who's right about the science. I'm asking, do you realize that do you see?
I don't know. I don't trust the scientists to understand politics, because that's not.
So what I'm asking you is, did we have a valid thing to bring Fauci 40 years in service? Do we have is that a political theater, or there's validity to what they did? I'm talking about, let's give people straight, no chaser, what happened with that hearing, because they literally pointed out that they provided that the false lab leak, the evidence leads all the way to the natural. They talked about there's like 3 things that the politicians brought up in that hearing that are not scientifically supported.
So Montoya, come on now. Just what the politicians asked questions in that hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Rasmussen, who lives in Canada, not America. Let me be clear. So I was just going to deal with that thing. We can talk about that later, when the brother was like, oh, nobody else in the world is talking about this. She lives in Canada, dude. That's another part of the world. Other people are talking about this.
In American politicians. She's talking about
look, unless you're traveling around. Look,
she
man,
went to the hearing, and we're battling it over. No, her living in Canada is not saying.
We're battling. What did he go down?
We're having this political.
Did he go down to the Knesset? Did he go to the Netherlands? Did he go to The Hague? Did he go to the British Parliament? Did he go to Kenya's House of Commons? I mean, what the F are we talking about when we say only Americans are dealing with this?
So let's say we're clear. The dialogue is, who's still having a political battle over a pandemic that we have successfully battled?
I mean, that's a stupid. Look, I'm not John.
I'm just saying that's what the man said. So you need to respond to what he said.
Unless the brother
said that only America's still having this political battle.
I know. I'm not gonna get into it because that's a
you did. You try to say she went to Canada and they have nothing to do.
No, wait a minute. You can Google her. Hold on. I stated a fact. She lives in Canada.
But what they have to do with what he said? He said that America's having a political battle over the science,
which is true. But then he said nobody else in the world is. That's BS. He didn't take no daggone survey of who else in the world.
So who else is having a political battle 6 years later after the pandemic?
Well, you should go travel to those countries and find out. I'm not interested.
What do you think?
I'm not interested. It doesn't matter. I'm an American nationalist. I care about America.
Okay, and so you don't think so? Show me else who's having a political battle over something.
I just told you I'm not interested. So what are they planning? Hey, Montoya, what kind of crops are they planting in Israel? I don't care.
So my question to you: are you willing to be honest that the politicians brought this forward as political theater with no evidence?
Because politics is Hollywood for ugly people.
Right,
understand my premise. That guides everything. So of course that was part of it. But it was also it is very reasonable to think that many things can be true at once.
Okay, what else?
Montoya, you have a higher than average intelligence listener base. Okay. So I think that your listener base can say that many things can be true at once. You don't have your people, they may not all be 130s and 120s on the IQ scale, but I guarantee you they're not 60s either.
Not fair
Okay.
enough.
So what I'm saying to you is, I think our audience, the people we engage with through your show, can say that yes, Rand Paul, a physician in America, could possibly want it. He's also a politician. Could possibly have trying to make 2 points: that the medical guidance was wrong, and he could, or at least not as well as it could have been, and he could also be doing theater. Absolutely. He could be doing
I'm
both.
saying I agree with both of those virologists. It was all theater, and here's how and why. The only reason Rand Paul is doing this is because Fauci clowned him in 21 and told him he was lying about pushing the lab leak. We didn't have enough information.
You think it's pure personal vendetta, which is what Fauci said. So Fauci said,
let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. The why is not only did he call Rand Paul a liar, but here's Rand Paul's history. He is actually a physician, as you said. He put together his own board to get the certification. His own board certified him as a physician. The board that he put together certified him. So this is a personal vendetta for this to come up 6 years later.
So you're saying that Rand Paul is not a certified physician?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the board
what are you
certified
saying?
him. I'm saying the board of people. Like if I go to a doctor, if I go get my doctorate, the people I certify, I have nothing to do with them being on the committee. I don't have that kind of power. Rand Paul has that name. I'm not saying he's not a doctor. I'm just highlighting that this is so personal for Rand Paul because he know Fauci is getting at him when he said he was lying about the lab leak in 2020.
Dude, I'm not sure why you said that. And I don't want to get into the. I just Googled that and clauded it and everything. Rand Paul went to Duke. He is a licensed certified physician, not by himself.
I said he is. I said he is.
Why would you say that?
Hold on. Did you hear what I said? I said he is a licensed physician. So why are you saying I said he did not? Are you listening to what I actually said? What I said
I'm gonna question you, Montoya, whether or not you have an agenda here.
You're not listening to what I said.
Okay.
You keep saying I said he's not a licensed physician. You just said at Duke it says he's a licensed physician. I never positioned that he was not a licensed physician.
You said he wasn't certified. You said he certified himself.
No, I did not. That is not
all right. I didn't hear that properly.
Yeah.
Roll back the tape.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad to say it again.
I thought you said that he wasn't certified.
I don't present misinformation. We don't. That's what you don't know me to do. What I said was he selected the board that actually did his certification. So it's personal to him that.
So he selected the American Board of Ophthalmology.
The people that certified him, he selected them. Go look that up. Here you go. So that's why it's so personal. That's all I wanted to let you know. This is all theory.
Well, I'm Googling and
that's cool. That's cool. I'm going to go into the next
I just don't see any evidence to suggest what you're suggesting.
We'll do that after the show.
I would be happy to read the link and find out.
I'll do that after the show.
On the issue whether or not Fauci, now I do know that your listeners are more than aware that Fauci didn't answer a single question that was asked of him. And his position, Fauci's position was, I didn't answer a question because I know that this was kabuki theater, and so to speak. He didn't use that exact word, but he was saying they're just doing this so they can put me in jail. And so I'm going to plead the fifth on every answer. So the fact is that other than maybe understanding a question set that was a viable question set based on science in theater.
No, those virologists called out that there was no viability.
Montoya. I'm going to say something here. I mean, your show, so you can do this however you want. But Americans, politically conscious listeners, never ever consider 100% sourcing to one person or even two people. Research, get multiple viewpoints. Just because two virologists were presented on Montoya's show doesn't mean that they represent the truth. Otherwise, why have multiple universities and multiple virologists?
Something that wasn't viable, that was actually viable that Rand Paul presented? Can you give me one example of anything scientifically that
Rand Paul didn't present anything? He asked questions which were not answered.
You said that they presented viable science. You said
I said he asked science. He asked questions about the science. He asked the questions.
No, that's not what happened in that theory. He actually presented that it was a lab leak theory. He also presented that it was.
You mean he concluded? He was making conclusions, is what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I want to tell me out of all those 100 questions, give me one of them that was based on any science. Since you're saying that he presented, you said it was theater and viable. You said it was viable. Tell me one thing.
When one creates a postulation in a scientific inquiries, that is not science. That is the begging question.
Okay. So you
a
saying
question is not science.
Okay,
a thesis is not science.
So what was presented that was viable?
Well, molecularly impossible. That was presented as science by the virologist. See, look, we can't talk about what Fauci said because Fauci didn't say shit. Excuse me. This is stop it.
You said it's theater and viable. I just want to hear one question that was viable.
Well, she didn't say anything. So let's deal with what the virologist said. It's molecularly impossible. And the virologist said that Fauci had said that on some previous occasion. Fauci didn't say that during the hearing that you're trying to talk about because Fauci didn't say shit during the hearing.
So I know he didn't. Some of those same questions he's already answered prior. But there were. So here it is.
What one says in a courtroom has nothing to do with what one says outside of a courtroom or a hearing.
So I just want to know what you think was viable. I
don't know. Look, for me, everybody gets up in arms about that little hearing. I knew it was a show. I mean,
that's all I said.
I went and you know what I did? Montoya, when you said that you were going to talk about Fauci yesterday, I went and listened to the highlights from the hearings. And then actually I know for a fact that Fauci didn't say a darn thing, right? Because he answered, I plead the fifth on every single thing. They even asked him, is the sky blue today? He goes, on the council of my I plead the fifth. They said, are you here today? I plead the fifth. That's what he did. That's how comical it was. So why are we even talking about this? If you want to talk about what virologists are saying,
you said two things could be true, and I'm trying to hear what part of was viable.
So the questions, the truth is, it could be very true that they were hoping that he would answer some of their questions. That could be true. Okay. I don't know. Do you know that that's not true?
I was wondering what was viable out of what they asked. It was complete.
All of it is viable. Look, when if you got a child and you tell the child, all questions are good questions. You don't tell the child, oh, well, you better ask a viable question. No, that you're gonna have a dumb kid if you do that to your kid.
Right, Leo. But if I want to prosecute you for a crime, I need to be presenting something that's actual factual.
If you ain't done nothing wrong, what's wrong with telling the truth? If you know the truth.
So what you're talking about now is no different than why every defense lawyer doesn't let an innocent person get on the stand because of the people that ask questions. So that's not playing.
You have that option.
You're playing this right now versus just keeping it real conscious. Not two things can be true, and I thought you.
I'm having a 120 IQ discussion. I'm not willing to have an 80 IQ discussion.
Hey,
I'm not willing to have that.
Make sure we call it straight. So let's continue this conversation.
There's molecularly viable and then there's mechanically viable, right? So you can say, well, atoms and protons don't split that way. Molecularly, it doesn't work. See, I can have that discussion because I am educated and intelligent enough to know this to be the case. But I'm also intelligent enough that mechanically someone could do something that does not fit the scientific method and such that it could what? It could mitigate and compromise the procedure so that the molecular response that you'd expect becomes something totally different. And that is absolutely possible mechanically. See, a virologist is also wanting to answer a question in 30 seconds in a way that the 7th grade educated Americans can understand, without bringing up these variables that the 120 IQ American knows. So I ain't treating your audience like they're stupid. I'm treating them
I
like they can
understand
know
that. I understand that, but here's the reality, man. Here's the reality that you're not willing to admit is they basically took convoluted information to try to create this criminal case. And convoluted is non-scientific stuff to try to go after our actual science.
And the reason why that's true, what you just said, that it's possible. And again, I'm saying to you, that's part of it, sure. But there's also a real scientific reason to ask those questions. But I'm going to agree with you there because liberal progressives also adjudicated things against Trump that was convoluted. And we know that to be true too.
Exactly.
We know that to be true too.
Yes, the Letitia James case is absolutely that. The reason people even say 36-time felon is because of Letitia James' political.
So we're in this.
Here it is, and made a basically political situation to get a mugshot that actually backfired on what the Democrats were doing.
Exactly.
I'm gonna always call it straight no chaser. I'm just surprised to see you not calling this situation straight no chaser.
Well, I said yes, but see, the only difference between
this ain't an and. This is all political.
Okay,
Letitia James was out. Now, can a lawyer come on here? I'm a legal studies major. I'm not a lawyer. Can a lawyer come on here and give me the exact legal reason why Letitia James could do what she did? I would be wrong to the lawyer, but ultimately that was political theater. It was a political tool that she ran on and got the position on, and actually took it all the way through to getting a mug shot. Like that's
how it wasn't part of your rundown for your show today, but I'll give you another one. Isn't it beautiful how Jeanine Pirro has had to eat crow when she learned the facts that the State Department was feeding her some information for political theater to serve President Trump's premise, which was not scientifically based, but a fair question. Did somebody go in there and rip up the reflecting pool? And then it served his needs to ask that question. So people do create hypotheses just to serve their own political need.
And that's exactly what happened
Trump
here.
did it.
And
Jeanine Pirro is usually a Trump bootlegger, finally said, gosh days, I can't defend this in court at all. And she let it go. That was huge. That was huge.
Yeah, they're not. Fauci's not gonna get in because they don't even have a case. That's how bad that was. That's how bad it was. But it also led to this administration, highlighting again who we're putting in the office. Let me play a couple of clips here and have this.
You're starting new studies to try to link autism, but you're also
telling me. I'm not trying to link autism to anything. I'm trying to find out why has autism gone.
Are you also trying to find out how it interacts with people's DNA, what's predisposed to have an autistic child? Are you doing both?
Yeah, but Dana, you probably don't understand this because you're not a scientist. But genes
you're not either.
Genes don't cause epidemics.
I understand genes.
They provide a vulnerability.
A gene provides an environmental. Exposure. That's what I'm asking. Are you studying the environmental
exposure? We're looking
exposure?
at all the different environmental exposures.
Because of their anti-science crusade, we are now dealing with a screwworm infestation that we had successfully eradicated back in the 60s. We're looking at the largest number of measles cases that we've seen in a generation. And we are dealing with an absolutely absurd food safety crisis like diarrhea lettuce. This is what happens when you replace epidemiologists and researchers with conspiracy theorists.
That's the state we're in. If we're not going to call political theater what it is, and we're actually got scientists who are literally saying, I don't even know if I want to do this in the United States, because that really is happening, Leo. Like that's the state.
Not only have scientists, you even have lawyers who are saying they don't want to do law. And look, Trump's weaponization of the entire governmental system, our whole system of democracy, he has weaponized it. He is very clear about that he was going to do this, right? And he's doing it. So, yeah, RFK, he's a weapon. He's not a scientist. Dana Badger's so right. You're not a scientist either. He's not a scientist. He's a weapon for Trump, okay? The vulnerabilities that this political theater and this political tit for tat that has happened, and I'm saying tit for tat because
it happens both ways.
Right. It happens both ways. And once you open the door, there's some people you can sort of give a little fake slap and then they'll punch you in the face. Trump is one of those people. Doesn't make him right. It makes him incredibly wrong. Just like if my kid said to me, I like to use children because I'm a father first. If my kid said to me, well, he looked at me the wrong way. Well, you didn't have to punch him in the nose. Trump is that person. You look at him the wrong way, step on his white sneaks, he's going to shoot you. That's wrong. It's wrong and when it happens in a neighborhood. It's wrong when it happens at the presidential level. It is wrong. And yes, it has opened up the door now where we have pretty much no process for safeguarding Americans' health. That is true. I'm a conservative who is admitting that what that sister, Miss Clark, said is true. We are now putting ourselves in a situation where we have no safeguards.
And that's the bigger point versus you and me having our personal argument or me getting caught up in my own emotions in this situation. Let me call it what it is. I'm just like, I like to call things what it is. I'm not trying to be right. But unfortunately, when I do the research and I see somebody convoluting science, it bothers the hell out of me because I'm a science enthusiast. So that's
not only do we have no research and no safeguard through research or oversight or regulation, we're actually going hyper the other way. We're now in a situation where if I was an unscrupulous, money-hungry person, I could probably get away with doing some industry practices that would make me lots of money just because we're in an environment where I'm less likely to be caught.
Exactly.
That's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, like basically the office that, in a sense, would respond to the next pandemic, they got it down to one person, Leo.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So let me make it plain to you.
Hopefully it's another 100 years before the next one comes along. Hopefully.
This is how bad it is and how much and why I have some faith. Because I don't want to be all negative, doom and gloom until you know that. But let me tell you, I was having a discussion with a young man that I'm advising. Not my son. Maybe I'll give clarity on this because I don't want people to think this is my son. I'm advising a young man, and he's also planning to go to school. He doesn't have a father. So he comes to me for fatherly advice all the time. So he's looking at his loan options. And because I've educated him in a certain way too, he then says to me, well, Mr. Leo, it looks like I have the opportunity to take a Department of Education loan. And I said, yeah. And then he looks at it and he goes, oh, I don't have to pay that loan back until I'm 6 months into my employment after grad school. And I said, true. And he goes, so I ain't paying no interest on the loan while I got it? And I said, no. And he goes, and the loans from the federal government, from the Department of Education? I said, yeah. He goes, well, couldn't I just earn 4% interest on that for 6 years by taking more money than I need? And I said, I'm not going to answer the question. You were smart enough to ask it, but yeah. Then he goes, but I thought the Department of Education didn't exist. See, when people say that that young people aren't paying attention to the fact that their government's been torn apart and that all the structures of accountability, like they are noticing it. And he's even noticing it to the point where he's like, heck, the Department of Education has been defanged. I could take this loan. The likelihood of me even having to pay it back is not even real. And I can make interest off of it for 6 years or more. That's admitting that these young people do pay attention.
I love it. I'm glad they do.
And they're going to try and fix it because he knows that that's not right. He knows that it's not right to have an unregulated society.
And Emil would eat this administration up for that because we already have fraud societies.
We've opened the door for even more. You know why? And you're going to ask this later. So I'm going to go ahead and segue for you. The reason why Trump allows this is because he doesn't want anybody checking him.
Exactly. And let's start here.
Do you think the media is doing its job in covering the Republican Party right now? Like Trump does this address. Some network, CBS, took some of it live. It's all bullshit. It's an excuse, as you say, to undermine free and fair elections. Like, isn't this a 5-alarm fire?
I think it's a 5-alarm fire. And I hope journalists of all persuasions will stand up and we don't put this into a left versus right conundrum.
Is the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee worried about whether or not we will have free and fair elections both in November of this year and in November of 2028?
If we have a corrupted election this year, I don't know how we ever get to a free and fair election in 28. I'm absolutely worried, and I do not believe that what happened last Thursday night is the end of his efforts. Although the hypocrisy of this is he couldn't even maintain the presumption about China. China, by the way, got a hold of a lot of voter files, which are free, or you have to buy them. I've bought Virginia's voter files for years. But the idea that somehow...
But there's no consequences. Marco Rubio said, we didn't talk about it.
Right. Well, and also it's like the fact is, he's now changed his tune. It's not even been 5 days.
Yeah.
He's saying China's fine now.
Because they're his friends. Are you worried that they're going to send ICE agents to the polls? That could be the easiest route to them in voter intimidation and suppression.
It could be. Or even, and this is why I'm also love to do another session on AI and my obsessions there.
Yes.
You could create deep fakes of demonstrating that. You might not even need to have the ICE agents at the polls if you showed those images in particularly neighborhoods that were of immigrants or Latino communities. So he will use, I believe, every tool in his power, and it's one of the reasons, for example, that even though I know and have liked Jay Clayton, his answers as Director of National Intelligence didn't meet the need, in my mind right now, who will stand up and push back against this president should he use these tools.
There aren't many Democrats that I like and trust. I'm sorry, I got lots of Democrat friends. Not many Democratic high-ranking politicians that I trust. Mark Warner, a Democrat out of Virginia, I trust that man. I know him personally. I've dealt with him very personally. I've watched him for more than 30 years in politics. Wow. That man is trustworthy. And if I could take that caption that you just so wonderfully shared, box it, and send it to 300 million people, that's the episode I will want there for them to hear, because I work for the Carter Center. I work for the Reagan Library on this democracy issue. I work for the Secretary of State of Georgia on elections. I have expertise in that field. I'm a conservative Republican who want Republicans to win most of the time. Most of the time. We can talk about that on another show. What that man is saying is complete truth. Trump has done something to the point where he knew that he was not right for the job, but in order to make it sound like he was good at the job, he went and said before he played the basketball game, the court's not to speculation. The rim is not the proper height, but I'm going to play anyway. By the way, I slept too long last night and I got a little limp going on in my and then the referees, I told them that we should postpone the game, but they don't want to, so I'm going to play it anyway. And the referees, those guys are all crooks. Because he knows he's going to lose the game unless he throws all this stuff in there. That's what he's done to our electoral process. And the fact that, the referees have made some bad calls in the last couple of games. The court wasn't properly maintained. He just uses that to exploit the system. So what I try and encourage everyone to do, and you have a question that I know you want to get to. I try to encourage one, get your stuff tight and right. Do not create attractive nuisance like Fulton County and Fonnie Willis and da-da-da. Don't open the door for him to attack unless you got your stuff tight and right.
I love what you're saying, because that message goes to those who are in control of the system. So, like you said, as someone who's an expert in this area, the Carter Center actually basically test elections all around the world, not just in the U.S. And so, yes, while we do have one of the safest elections, to your point, since this attack is being made, particularly by this president, to your point, you can't be loose on your game at no area. And that's your point, because we should never have the leader of our country, while having safe elections, ever depositing that we don't. That is absolutely one of the best ways to tear down people's belief in the system. And what we always challenge any of you listening, whether you're left or right, it is always to the elected officials and the quote unquote elite. I'm not necessarily just personally against the elite, but it is always to their favor for you not to care, for you not to vote. Because if they can put their money into politics and influence it, the only way we win is with numbers. So if less of us show up, their money has more influence. This is just making you more politically conscious, while your vote actually matters no matter what they deposit in front of you, real or not. And we definitely try to weed through the narratives on this show. We don't always agree, but we do make a real attempt at weeding through the narratives. So that message, as Leo said, he backs it. I didn't know you knew that guy. So even more power to, this is a fire alarm. I think that's what the word they use. And so,
and it is, and I
we
think
need
neither
to know that as citizens. That's the point.
And I don't think Democrats actually are treating it existentially enough. I don't think that they are responding in a way that says that they believe it's a fire alarm. Because if they did, they would be doing a whole lot more than what they're doing.
Yep, specifically what we just talked about a couple of weeks with Keisha Lansbottom and Ricky J. Like, how the hell is she not out there? How is she not doing what the sister that what's the sister that ran against Kemp a few years ago, who went super
Stacey
hard
Abrams.
at? Yeah, she's nowhere close to out there. Nowhere close. She needs to be out there more while there's quote unquote a disdain for, in a sense, this president. But at the end of the day, if you're worried about election turnout, is the only way you prove that wrong, even though we're all both on here admitting it's just a false narrative being used by one man.
So you see, you got a comment down there I think is germane to the discussion,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, he says if you have ballot systems where state, city, and municipal ballots have federal candidates present, there is no strong possibility of voter for all. That is absolutely right from my understanding.
Well, he says if you have a ballot system,
than me, or maybe, yeah.
Well, in other words, I'm not real sure what he's saying. You might have to explain that to me. Where if you have federal candidates present on a ballot with the state, there is no strong possibility. I think what what they're saying is that they don't believe that there's a strong possibility of voter fraud. The evidence says that even when there is voter fraud, it's like less than 1% usually of impact on the election. So we just had a situation in New Jersey. Democrat Governor Mickey Sherrill admitted that 6,000 votes were cast that should never have been cast, that weren't even legal voters. She admitted that, a Democrat. But even with that 6,000, it was much less than 1% impact on the election. Wouldn't have made a single difference in any election that happened in her state. And that's what the commenter's point is that yes, and what Democrats should have done when Trump and other people, when in Georgia you had your radical dudes who are just living in retirement, have bored and have nothing to do, and so they're going around talking about we got voter fraud. What Democrats did, no, we don't. That's the wrong answer. The right answer is we need to improve things in Fulton County. We need to make sure that nobody can break into a South Georgia precinct and steal the laptops. Because all of that stuff truly happened.
Right. Yeah, like I said, in the very beginning, when
truly happened. Right? Like at State Farm, these ladies truly did start counting ballots when they were supposed to. This stuff happens, but it did not impact the election. But when you say to somebody, boom, you elbow them, and then they go, you fouled me. And then you go, no, I didn't. They know you're not playing fair. You're like, yeah, you did foul them. You still won the game by 30 points. That one foul wouldn't have changed the difference, but you did foul them. Just admit you fouled them.
Let me run through these last few clips so I can steal a few more minutes from you.
We say we want people to come out and vote in the midterms. We're talking about having actual checks and balances of Congress back. Right now, we have a Republican majority in the House and the Senate that has decided that the executive is also in charge of us. And we're supposed to be an equal branch. And so if we are lucky enough to win back the House and the Senate, that means we make different decisions about the budget. It means we make different decisions about who gets subpoenaed. It means we make different decisions about even court appointments. And when we think about reforming the Supreme Court, we're talking about looking at term limits. We're talking about reforming their ethics and actually having, the Supreme Court of this country be ethical. And, we're obviously also talking about appointing more, changing expanding the court.
So I just thought a simple clip with someone kind of in a sense explaining different issues that happen on the federal level, because obviously on this show we're always typically focused on our watchers being more paying more attention on the local level. In the midterms, the local level is obviously viable. I just thought it was just an interesting clip from Omar. What's her name? I'm sorry, Iman.
Mrs. Minette.
Okay, I don't know that part, but
she believes in her
anyway.
brand more than she believes in her truth. She is
Okay,
married to a brother, a white American, not a brother, you know, in that sense, in that colloquial sense. His name is Minette. Her married name is Minette. She goes by Omar because that's her brand name.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar. And so anyway, I just thought it was cool to hear some of the issues that our votes can affect. I just thought it was good for our listeners to
No,
hear.
I mean, she wasn't wrong about what she's saying.
Yeah,
she wasn't wrong by what she's saying. We certainly don't have co-equal branches right now. Trump has made it very clear through bully tactics that you're not equal to me.
and the only thing that I highlight that we have the power to change that. We cannot rely on the
and you know what? And here's why I disagree with this is why I disagree with Mrs. Minette, also known as Ilhan Omar, if that's her maiden name. Here's the deal. She said, if we're lucky. See, this is what my criticism of Democrats. I don't want Ilhan Omar to win. I don't want her to win. I don't think she's good for America. We can talk about that on another show. However, you Democrats, y'all don't need to be lucky. Y'all need to be strategic, capable, effective, and galvanized. And you need to be optimized in your effort to get rid of the kind of leadership we're seeing in America right now.
Well, here's some
you don't need to be lucky. You need to be strategic and smart.
I respect that 1,000. Here's the last couple of clips. I just caught this and wanted to get your thoughts on these clips, and then we'll get you out of here.
Voting does not stop violence.
No, but I understand. But leadership does. Leadership does.
We've been voting for years. Our parents have been voting, grandparents, and we feel like, wow, this works. We get what we're looking for.
I
represented adequately. Clearly, it's not working.
Well,
we've been voting and voting and voting.
Yeah.
We're both black men here.
Yeah.
I'm from Virginia, Maryland, not too far. What are we getting?
Do we think that the election in Maryland in 2022 didn't matter?
I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all. I'm not saying there's no utility to your vote whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's certainly not. There's certainly other avenues more powerful, like economic withdrawal, like I talked about.
Yeah.
So,
but what I'm saying is that before 2022, we had a situation where we were watching violent crime absolutely terrorize our state. You know, you're from the DMV.
And voting does what about that?
Well, let me tell you what voting does. For example, in 2022, Baltimore City was averaging about a homicide a day. That for the 7 years before I became the governor, we saw how the homicide rate in the state of Maryland nearly doubled. The non-fatal shooting rate did double. And you know what we got from our leaders before that? Thoughts and prayers. Do you know what we got from that? Some beautiful eulogies while we continue to allow bloodshed take place in our neighborhoods. And so in 2022, when we came on board, you know what we did? We actually started working with the mayor. We actually started working with community violence intervention groups. We made record funding to them. We actually started working with local law enforcement, make sure that they can move with appropriate intensity and absolute integrity and full accountability. We actually worked together collectively to be able to address the problem. Do you know what's happened since 2022? The violent crime rate in the state of Maryland is down nearly 50%. It is the fastest drop anywhere in the United States of America. In Baltimore City, the last time the homicide rate was this low, I was not born yet. You cannot tell me.
And you attribute that solely to the 2022 election?
Elections matter because what was happening before? What was happening before was bloodshed. What was happening before
There's still plenty of bloodshed. Why? I get Maryland.
We have more. Of course, we have more work to do.
Across the country.
So I'm going to say this because we don't have a lot of time. Again, weeding through the propaganda and the dialogue. I don't know if you got a chance to see, for example, my dialogue with Dr. Boyce Watkins. It went similar to what you just saw, Leo, from the standpoint of I was never offering an extreme. The governor never offered to that brother that those results were solely because of voting. Remember how basically the brother kept running to straw men. And then you were basically saying, "Oh, he's basically breaking down. We're at the lowest murder rates since I was born," and he can't acknowledge it because he's like, "Well, there's still a bunch of problems." And the brother and the governor saying, "Down 50%. I'm not saying is okay, but let's not act like your vote and what we were able to do." Him working with Brandon Scott, because I've been highlighting for a year and a half the work of Brandon Scott and Randall Wolfen over in Birmingham, Alabama. I think they are the leadership that you keep referring to. Because one thing you've always said consistently since you came on this show, you think we should have two viable parties in order to get the best republic. republic. Yeah, the best republic that we can have as a country. And so I've taken the time when I see people actually get results with political action that lead to the lowest murder rates in their cities since the 60s.
Bravo,
Then that has
Westmore.
to be highlighted.
Bravo,
And it's
Westmore.
a shame. It's a shame that the Democrats don't put that up. To your point, I've always been saying it's a damn shame when it doesn't get highlight what you've actually done. And so people end up, not that their brother is wrong. I get his positioning. I'm talking about raising the conscious level. That brother came with a sincere thought that says, hey, economic withdrawal will be more powerful than your vote. And all I would say to him, just like I said to Dr. Boyce, the game is to do both.
Well, look, just because somebody has doctor in front of their name doesn't mean that they're intellectually capable. I'm not saying anything but that. And what I'm saying to you is that people have their bents and their little, this is my horse. My horse is economic withdrawal. My horse is this, my blah, 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 blah. You know, look, we got to be willing to understand that people come with, this is the hill I'm on and I'm going to die on it. That poor young man, my heart goes out to him. Westmore was giving him truth. The Westmore governor of Maryland was a Democrat. And now here's a Republican saying Westmore was giving this young brother truth and giving him historical facts. And you're right. Democrats don't talk about those things. And you have to ask yourself why. I know why Dr. Boyce Watkins doesn't talk about it, because his whole shtick is withdrawal and into systems, and that's how he gets his little jobs at less than capable schools. But
oh, man,
I'm being mean. I'm being mean.
You calling that Morehouse less than
I'm being mean. The school.
I hope you ain't doing that.
Look. I will stand on this.
Okay, I'm gonna listen.
I will stand on that. Go ask any political science student at Morehouse if they feel like they're getting a capable education. So, I've been faculty advisor to an organization at Morehouse. They had 2 political science professors. 2.
Okay, you said political science. Okay, now I'm following you. Because what I do know in my research, what you said makes sense to me now. Because what I always say about our HBCUs, there are HBCUs that have niche areas where there's excellence being done. But generally speaking, there are a lot of that could be shut down just based on how they're moving as an entire school. But we definitely have some niche areas. And so, yeah, you're talking about the political science area. They're not being served. I definitely can understand that.
And they're working on it.
I can't argue with you.
They're working on it. They're working on it.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So they know it's a problem. The president when I was a faculty advisor to one of their organizations, not a faculty, a community advisor to one of their organizations, the president acknowledged that, this is a problem. I'm trying to fix it.
What
I'm saying is, you're not going to impress me because you're assigned to a school that's struggling just to get people to work there.
Wow.
Okay. So when he holds on, when a Boyce Watkins says that dystopian kind of stuff, right? Dude, you are not effectively leading like Westmore is. Westmore is creating a difference. You're creating rhetoric. I'm not. Look, you should put me on the show. I'm going to go watch your show with Boyce Watkins. But I'm just not going to buy into that stuff because the casualty there is that poor guy my heart was breaking as I listened to that brother not deal with Westmore's facts.
Right, and that was my point. My point in the dialogue, because I am friends with Dr. Boyce, so I'm calling it like it is. But my point is, we have a responsibility if we're going to be on these platforms saying we want to lead our people. We have a responsibility to at least make sure that the information has been checked that we provide, for one, and two, let's have a realistic dialogue about what politics actually does versus he would offer that he doesn't demonize it, and I'm like, but you speak down on it to the point where people are not going to effectively do what still matters.
There's a great edict. There's a great edict that my Christian tradition teaches me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. That it's not just what I know. It's not just the facts. My mama said to me, 9th grade education, boy, you can be right, but dead right. Dr. Boyce, you can be right, but dead right. Okay. You could be creating harm with your tongue. Okay. So you have a duty to make sure that people understand that the vote is power. That's the best way for that young man to feel like he can put a hand on the scale. Don't make him feel so feckless, ballless, whatever. Don't make him feel that he is just a weak boy. And when you promote that crap, is it because you want to be king? Why do you tell a young prince that he can't be king and win wars? You can win wars if you know that you can go out there and vote in a way that makes a difference. Now, why aren't James Clyburn correcting Boyce Watkins? Why aren't some of these senior old Democrats who call themselves civil rights relevant? Why aren't they showing relevance today? That is the leadership vacuum that Wes Moore is speaking of. Why isn't James Clyburn saying, bravo, Wes Moore? You know why? Because these old farts need to go. I agree with the Democratic Socialist movement in the sense that a disruption on the Democratic side of the party is useful, helpful, and somebody needs to synergistically show leadership so that the blending of that competition of ideas lead to a better Democratic Party so my Republicans can stop acting like buttholes.
Hey, I can respect that, man. And I'll just say this again, that I know, again, I wasn't even trying to make it about Dr. Boyce, but I definitely respect the thoughts. And
he's a prototype. He's an architect. Nothing personal, never met him. I would love to have a beer with him.
I just want to say that he would offer that he is telling that young man how to be powerful. I would offer on top of what you said, all I've ever said is, and add the vote because those with power use it. So why would you ever have any of us lessen a tool that's being used against us? I'm just saying use it and. That's all I've ever tried to say to anybody who thinks pulling out of the system actually is effective when the people that have the most power in the system, that's what they want. So why would you ever do exactly what they want? That's just been my dialogue that I've attempted to have with anybody who proposes something that I know hurts our community. I know that viewpoint hurts our community, so that's why I was willing to challenge. Here's the last clip, and we'll get out. It's another one from Wes Moore and Killer Mike.
Black entrepreneurship is important because when black entrepreneurship happens, the whole GDP grows. Everything gets better. When hair companies like Bronner Brothers, Johnson's, Dudley's were dominating in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s, not only were our communities dominating in terms of jobs and stuff, they also were the white labelers for bigger corporations that sold to other people. So we need, and I'm just telling black folk, we need to be voting in people who are economically minded in my sense, because for a lot of the things that we're due, that we're waiting for the government to give us, if they won't or until it gets to us, the economic opportunity part is something I feel like we should take or can take greater advantage of. We have men and women out there with technology ideas that can't get funded. We have men and women out there, dump truck contracts that should be guaranteed by government. How important is entrepreneurship to the black community? And once gained, how important is that to come to the ground?
When you think about entrepreneurship, that has been the greatest wealth driver that we've had.
Yes.
Right? And so we then need to think about, okay, so what have been the mechanisms that people have used and utilized to be able to create that measurement of entrepreneurship? Part of it is the fact that, when we say we're going to focus on supporting minority-owned businesses, black-owned businesses, et cetera, and people say, well, isn't that a zero-sum game? And I said, no, what you've been doing before has been a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
When you've been locking us out of these type of opportunities. Hence why it is government responsibility to do things like procurement reform, like we've done inside of the state of Maryland, to make sure that our black-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, they're getting their fair share of state dollars because those are public dollars. It's why when we did a legalized cannabis market, our entire first round of cannabis licenses that we gave out were all social equity licensees, over half black.
Oh, wow.
And look at what we've been able to do in Maryland. Because I'm like, if you have what is now a new $1 billion industry, let's make sure that the $1 billion industry also can help to support the communities that have been most harmed by the war on drugs and the war on cannabis that we've been able to see.
I agree.
And so our focus, when we say work, wages, and wealth, it is about how can we create a series and a measurement of ownership.
Yes.
Within our society, home ownership, business ownership, having ideas and businesses that can go from, hiring a couple people to then you're hiring 10, to then you're hiring 20, to then and then you're going public. Like, we want this for our community, because if you can address the racial wealth gap and if you can create more black wealth, you're going to have the fastest way for the United States. No one's going to be able to touch our economy.
I agree.
If we're able to fix this.
I love that thought, Leo. And here's what I would like to say to anybody watching is it's not a made up thing when you say, hey, if black wealth elevates, all of America elevates. We have real life examples in history when that has happened, and you've watched the America elevate. But not just piggybacking what he's saying, he actually talked about the tools and the intentional efforts to ensure that those things happen. Because here's the thing that people miss. Political narratives will have you saying, oh, they got something, so I will lose. Meaning the politicians give you a narrative that, oh, they got something, so therefore you are losing. But as Westmore talked about, at the end of the day, these are public dollars. Public dollars. So we'll say what the government gives us. I love how Gary Chambers says, what are y'all talking about? That's our money. That's how Gary Chambers says it. What you mean gave me something? It's our money. We want to give some context. Yes, I need that the person who takes the public service and says, yeah, I'll go to that person and says, make sure my road is smooth. Because if I got potholes, that means when I buy a new car, right, I'm gonna have to get a new car sooner than my neighbor who has a smooth road versus me. So yes, I want my politician. I don't got time in my day-to-day to make sure I got a smooth road. I vote him or she in to make sure my road is smooth in my neighborhood, especially if she's from my neighborhood. That's why I vote for somebody in my neighborhood, because they'll keep up with whether I got pot roads. I'm going somewhere with this, Leo. So as we talk about public dollars, here's the political narratives that anybody watching, a lot of the stuff that we battle over politically, we just misunderstand how tax dollars works. Meaning, for example, in Chicago, where we absolutely saw immigrants, possibly some illegal, because I don't know people's status, get a building where they were given certain amounts of subsidies to live in that building. So the politics will say, hey, have you say, look at what they're getting. And you may be in a situation where you're destitute or trying to make it every day. Nobody ever tells you that's not how the tax dollars works. Because here's what a city is doing in that situation. I'm not talking about the right or wrong. I'm talking about the actual way politics and the money works. If you see those immigrants and possibly some illegal getting these subsidies or getting this specific money to live in these spaces, I promise you that city has figured out the economics of a few tax dollars over here, because that community will fill these job positions that no Chicagoans, no Illinoisans want. They will fill that, and here's the money not only that we make in return by giving that money, it also keeps the tomato prices low for the rest of the city. Like, these are how these decisions are made.
So excellent stuff, Montoya, and I love that segment with Killer Mike and Wes Moore. Great, good stuff. Okay, and what we need to then be asking then, therefore, okay, when you're looking at somebody else's plate and they got a full plate and your plate is empty, so now you decide, I want to criticize what Atlanta might be doing to help out Hispanics or immigrants or whatever. What you should be asking is, how can I get my plate full? That's the first step, because you're not even going to be able to rightly compete against and fight against whatever you're seeing if you're not nourished, if your brain isn't working with all the proper chemistry, etc. So feed yourself. And if you're having trouble feeding yourself, figure out how in this economy, in this political economy, in this financial economy, etc., how can I feed myself and make sure my plate is full? And sometimes the answer isn't in attacking what somebody else is getting, is looking at whether or not you're accessing your own money. So the last word that I want to give on your show today, because I'm worried about this, I am worried about what you just brought up, is that too many of us in the Black American community, I'm not so concerned about other communities, they can take care of themselves a little bit. But if I'm going to make a critique of a Morehouse or anywhere else, what I want to see, and I will give my money, time, and connection to doing this, how can we empower Black American people to have more political science professors? How can we empower more? And actually, Morehouse is doing some things where they are tapping into the public digest. They're getting some money for security and safety from Homeland Security. I'm aware of that because I help do that. So I'm aware that they are learning to do that, and they're doing it when they can. They don't have as many lobbyists that the average predominantly white school might have. So I try and lend a hand whenever I can and speak to a governor or the DHS or whatever. So we need to ask more questions about that instead of, are those Hispanics and immigrants taken from our plate? It's our money. I am hearing this over and over, Montoya, and I'm concerned about it. And I already mentioned to you, and you said yes, that you would have someone and come on and talk about the Trump accounts. And I'm queuing that up in public.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good
Because
cue.
it's really important. Because when people go, oh, I'm not taking those $1,000 from Trump, it ain't from Trump, it's your money. He's giving back to a black family your money. It's not Trump's money. He branded it a Trump account, but it's your money. Take that money, please, people. And if you've got a CPA that's saying, no, I'm not going to advise you to take that money, or a financial planner or a banker or a cousin or Uncle Boo-Boo or whatever, don't listen to them. If you got an 18-year-old child, take that money right now.
And so I'll close with, again, just a big up to Wes Moore as the governor of Maryland. Big up to Brandon Scott. Big up to Randall Wolf. And I've been highlighting these brothers because, again, I feel like they're moving different than a lot of the leadership that I've seen most of my lifetime. And so it is up to us as people to make sure we not only highlight them, but we actually attach to those who are giving real solutions. I just feel like what Killer Mike and Wes Moore just talked about are very viable solutions where they designated the money to where it needed to go. But the thing is, it's not just, again, what are they getting? It's how do I strategically, politically set myself up? That's what you have to raise your political consciousness of, how to make my vote count, even if it's not without money. If there's no money, you need numbers. So don't let them trick you out of your money by making you bow out of the system. That's why we're here. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. Thank you, brother.